right, we're just going to take another few seconds here as people start getting comfortable and in front of their screens. All right, hello everyone and welcome to P&P Live. My name is Heidi and I'm the Community Outreach Coordinator at Politics and Prose. Thank you for joining us and tuning into this virtual format where we can continue to bring authors and new books to you. I have the pleasure of hosting our event this evening and I am delighted to welcome our guests, Qasim Rashid and Amatus Sami-Karim Ali. Just a few housekeeping points before we get started. You can click the link that we're going to drop in the chat to get a copy of Hana and the Ramadan Gift. Signed book plates are available while supplies last. If you have a question for our guests, you can click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen and add one there. At the end of the chat, our guests will have time to answer some of your questions. You can also upvote questions that you like and want most answered. Now on to the event you're waiting for. Qasim Rashid is an author and human rights lawyer focusing on women's rights, religious freedom, and children's advocacy. Hana and the Ramadan Gift is his debut picture book. Qasim, his wife Aisha, and their 3 children reside in Virginia. In conversation with Qasim is Amatus Sami-Karim Ali, who is an award-winning producer, musician, and actress. Most recently, she was nominated for a Drama Desk Award in 2018 for her work as a composer and sound designer of The Homecoming Queen for the Labyrinth Theater, and received an Emmy as an executive producer of We Are the Dream, the kids of the Oakland MLK Oratorical Fest for HBO. It is my pleasure to turn the event over to them.
Thank you so much, Heidi. Thank you to Politics and Prose for so graciously hosting us. For those of you who have followed my work, you know for a long time this has been a dream to publish this kind of a children's book. We're going to talk a bit more about that afterwards. But thank you for joining us. Thank you for spending your evening with us. You'll have to forgive me. I am fasting today, so if my throat gets hoarse and dry, you'll know why, because I haven't had water in 14 hours. I'm so grateful to be joined by my extraordinarily talented and amazing, brilliant friend, Amatus Sami, who is just an inspiration, an artist that I've admired her work for such a long time. And when I asked her to co-host this with me, she very graciously accepted the invitation. Amatus, thank you for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, Qasim.
Absolutely, absolutely. So as a quick run-up show for those watching, we're going to basically do a read-through of the entire book. And then we're going to have a quick conversation, but we also want to have an opportunity to interact with each of you. So if you have questions, put them in the chat, share them, and we'll do our best to answer them and engage and whatever's on your mind. And in particular, I want questions from kids. If any of your kids are watching and they have questions, I want them to ask, because this book is written for kids. It's about kids, and hopefully it's an enjoyable and rewarding experience for them. So with that, Heidi, let's jump into the book. So Hana and the Ramadan Gift by myself and Alia Jalil. Alia Jalil is the artist, the illustrator, and I can't say enough good things about her. Extraordinarily talented. She really brought these words to life. And you know, she has this sixth sense, this knack of really understanding what we're trying to convey, and just the emotions and the themes and the tones and the nuances. She just picked up so beautifully. And I think you'll see that through this. If you already have a copy of the book in hand, you'll appreciate that the print version is even more amazing than the online version. So let's get started. Hana and the Ramadan Gift. When her Dada Jaan gently shook her awake, Hana Noor opened her eyes. Slowly, confused by the darkness, the sun hadn't even risen yet. But when she saw her grandfather smiling down at her, she remembered.
Ramadan Mubarak, shouted Hana, jumping out of bed.
Hana had been counting down to the first day of Ramadan, the holy month of fasting for Muslims. And now it was finally here.
Can I fast this year, Hana asked. Going from dawn to sunset without eating for a whole month seemed hard to Hana. But now that she was 8, she was surely old enough. And how proud her grandma, Dada Jaan, would have been of her today.
Not yet, my dear, Dada Jaan said. Fasting is for grown-ups, not for growing children.
But if I can't fast, then how can I celebrate Ramadan?
By saving the world, replied Dada Jaan with a smile. Hurry up now. Let's join the others for Sehri before the sun comes up. When Hana heard Dada Jaan's response and smelled the food of Sehri, the special breakfast of Ramadan, she forgot her disappointment. After Sehri and the morning prayer, it was time to get ready for school. Let's stop at the soup kitchen on the way to school, Dada Jaan said.
Why? Hana asked. Don't we have plenty of soup at home?
Dada Jaan explained, the soup isn't for us. When we fast during Ramadan, we feel hungry, and it reminds us that all over the world, there are people who don't have enough food, so we must help them.
But the world has so many people. How can we help them all? Hana asked.
We can help our neighbors, Dada Jaan replied, and that's worth the world. Later that day at school, Hana played with her friend Maria.
That's the bell. We should go back to class, said Hana.
Wait, cried Maria. I lost my grandma's necklace.
What does it look like?
It's gold with a green gemstone. Can you help me find it?
Well, let's look in all the places we played today, Hana said. But the necklace wasn't on the basketball court or the kickball field. I know, let's look in the jungle gym, said Hana, finally. And there it was.
It must have fallen off when I did that backflip. Thank you, Hana. Hana rushed into class after the bell stopped ringing. Next time, please make sure you're on time, said Mrs. Holmes sternly.
But Hana wanted to explain, but her teacher had already started reading again. Ramadan had just begun and already Hana had gotten in trouble. Helping neighbors wasn't as easy as Dada Jaan made it seem.
On the 11th day, Dada Jaan woke Hana early before sunrise.
Shall we save the world again today, Dada Jaan? Hana asked excitedly. But then she remembered that today was also an important day at school, the big science fair, and she didn't want to be late.
Don't worry, Dada Jaan said. We're up in plenty of time to stop by the shelter before you go to school. Come, let's go.
But Dada Jaan, the people at the shelter won't know that we're the ones who donated the clothes.
Why does that matter, Hana? Asked Dada Jaan. Sometimes it's enough to help people simply out of love. Besides, he whispered with a wink, all the best superheroes work in secret, don't they?
When Hana got to school, she got ready for the science fair.
Amazing model, Hana, her friend Danny said as Hana arranged her model replica of Abbas ibn Firnas's flying machine.
Thanks, Hana said. What's yours?
It's a globe showing the dates and flight path for Amelia Earhart, the first woman to fly solo around the world. Oh, look, Maria made a robot. Danny set his model down and ran off.
Danny, wait! The globe was rolling off the table. Hana lunged and caught it just before it smashed into the ground. That was close, Hana thought. She put the globe back on the table before anyone noticed.
Danny wins. Hana was happy for Danny. He was a good friend and the globe was amazing. But no one knew that Hana had saved the day. How was the science fair, Hana? Asked Dada Jaan when he picked her up.
Fine, said Hana quietly. Why didn't she feel happy about doing the right thing? Dada Jaan made it seem so easy.
On Saturday, 20 days of Ramadan had passed. Remember, you have a play date with Sarah, called Hana's mother. Sarah's family had just moved into their neighborhood.
But I was gonna work on my art project today, objected Hana. And I don't even know Sarah.
Hana, that's not very nice. We need to welcome new neighbors like family. I'll make you a deal, Hana, Dada Jaan said. I'll go with you, and if you're not having any fun, we can leave whenever you want. Okay?
I won't have fun, muttered Hana. But she went with Dada Jaan anyway. They ate delicious kanafe that Sarah's mom had made. They looked at pictures of Sarah's friends from her old school. Pretty soon, they had lost track of time altogether.
Ready to go? Asked Dada Jaan.
But we haven't finished our game, said Hana and Sarah at the same time.
When they got home, Dada Jaan showed Hana an old family photo album.
Hana couldn't believe what she saw.
This is from the year we moved to this place. We didn't know anyone. We didn't speak the language.
So what did you do? Asked Hana.
It was the kindness of our friends that got us through, said Dada Jaan. And, he said, twinkling at Hana, it probably helped that your Dada Jaan was happy to feed our neighbors the best butter chicken in the world.
That evening, Hana thought about her Ramadan. She was sad. First, she got in trouble for helping Maria. Then she did the right thing to help Donnie, but she felt sad that no one knew. And she was ashamed about how she did not want to play with Sarah at first.
It was the last day of Ramadan. Sunset during Ramadan is called
Iftar, said Hana.
That's right, said Dada Jaan. And at Iftar, we break our fast. And when the sun sets on the last day of Ramadan,
it's the Eid al-Fitr celebration, Hana exclaimed.
Dada Jaan smiled. Do you think you made the world a better place by helping your neighbors this Ramadan?
I tried, Hana responded, but I don't think it worked.
I wouldn't be so sure about that, said Dada Jaan. The sun was shining the next day. It was finally Eid. Hana and her family headed to the mosque for Eid prayer. The mosque, like their home, was decorated with Ramadan lights, and the air was filled with the wonderful aroma of her favorite Eid desserts. After Eid prayer, they visited the cemetery to remember Dada Jaan and other loved ones. They got home for the Eid party just as their guests started pouring in, exclaiming,
Eid Mubarak! Hana's whole world was there to celebrate Eid. Her cousins from out of town, her friends who attended the church across the street, the neighbors who attended synagogue right by their mosque, and the Sikh family who ran the soup kitchen at the local Gurdwara. Everyone was hugging her and saying, Eid Mubarak, Hana.
They ate delicious kheer, gulab jamuns, and jalebis. They hugged and laughed. Race you to the last gulab jamun, said Dada Jaan. But Hana had something else on her mind.
How do I really know if I've helped the world this Ramadan, Dada Jaan?
Well, let's see. Did you help your friends when they needed you?
Hana thought about Maria. Yes.
And did you help others simply out of love?
Hana nodded as she thought about Danny's globe.
And did you show love to those who had no one else?
I think so, said Hana, as she thought about Sarah.
Then you have your answer, said Dada Jaan. It would still be many years before Hana could fast for Ramadan, but she'd helped her neighbors, her world, and that made this the best Eid ever. The end. So thank you, first of all, Amatus, for sharing that with us. And this is the first time we've read this book publicly for the whole world to hear. So I'm grateful to each of you who are tuned in to this. And again, if you have questions, share them. But Amatus, as those questions come in, the first thing I want to share with you, we actually both grew up in Chicago and experienced Ramadan and Eid together at that time. And that was about 35 years ago. Much has changed since then. What about your childhood from an Eid experience? Do you want your children to experience as well?
I think because we share love for a brother of mine, his favorite attribute during Ramadan was the Prophet Muhammad's practice in feeding. Where there's food for one, there is food for two. And I think that your book really illustrates the beauty of that and the spirit of sharing and service and humanizing everyone you come in contact with. So that one thing is something that I think is easy to convey and share, especially with littler ones experiencing Ramadan for the first time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Amatus is referring to her late brother, Muhammad, who was just an angel in disguise. And during Ramadan, he would especially take the time out to just make sandwiches and hand them out to people who were maybe less fortunate. And he did this without telling people, without bragging about it. We would catch him doing it. And that's the only way we knew that he was doing it. I think it's that spirit of service to others There's a question from Rose who says, Ramadan Kareem from Two Little Muslims in Charlottesville. What are your favorite foods to eat during Ramadan and Eid? So I'll go first on that one. My favorite food, as my wife will tell you, during Ramadan is samosas. I will eat samosas as part of my, opening breakfast, as well as, my evening iftar. I don't know why I like samosas so much. I think it's the simplicity of them. They're very tasty. They're very compact. And for those who don't know what a samosa is, it's basically a triangle pastry fried, and it's filled with whatever you want. It could be filled with potatoes. It could be filled with beans. It could be filled with chicken, with beef, whatever you want. And it's deep fried, so it's probably not healthiest for you. And as far as sweets, semia is my favorite. It's like a sweet noodle soup type of thing. It's hard to describe, very easy to eat. What about you, Amatus?
My family is multicultural, and I grew up eating soul food and stopped eating a lot of it through the years. And so fasting is a great time to dust off some of my recipes of one of my grandmothers. So fried chicken, candied yams, I fill up on during this time, as well as biryani, and samosas I love as well. But my favorite dessert is kheer.
Kheer is, I absolutely love that as well. Another really important question, and I'll ask you to answer this one first. What does this book mean to each of you in the context of children having books which are inclusive of their beliefs and values?
Are you going first?
I'm going to ask you to go first this time.
Okay, so can you read the question?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
What does this book mean to you in the context of your kids having a book that is inclusive of their beliefs and values?
Books that illustrate practices and customs further strengthen your spiritual practice and maintaining peace, and to see yourself, whoever you are, and whatever custom or cultural practice that you practice, that you are a part of, really builds your self-esteem and brings joy to your life.
Yeah, I remember being addicted to the library growing up. Our parents would take us to the library every week. We'd pick up a whole bunch of books, read them during the week. I've read every single Peanuts comic out there because I would just get them by the volumes, and I'll count those as books too. But you would find plenty of books on Christmas, which were a lot of fun. Every now and then you'd find a book on Hanukkah, which is also fun. But I can't remember ever finding a children's book on Ramadan. And I love this part of it because when I got the book in hand, when I got the cover and I showed it to my daughter, who was then 4 at the time, also named Hana, her initial reaction was, "Abu, it's me." And she kept on pointing to the cover saying, "It's me." I mean, for her to see herself represented, that she deserves to be represented, she deserves to have a voice, I think it's powerful because it's something I certainly never experienced growing up. And so for me, it's so precious to be able to give that gift to my children and to any child who maybe hasn't seen themselves represented in the past, that going forward, not only can they be normalized, but also their friends can see them, and their friends can experience Ramadan through the eyes of a child and see the beautiful values of, like you said, Amatus, if there's food for one, there's food for two, of compassion, of inclusivity.
Thank you for starting this wonderful conversation. Let me get you going on some other questions here. This is from M. Tahir. Are you planning on a series of books with the same character exploring other Islamic holidays?
It's a great question. And so there's really only 2 actual Islamic holidays, right? There's the Eid al-Fitr, which is at the end of the month of Ramadan. And then there's Eid al-Azha, which is a celebration of the sacrifice of Prophet Abraham and his son Ishmael. And so the short answer is yes, that would be great. What that looks like, we've got some interesting ideas and possibilities. But I will say that I'm hopeful this is not the last you hear of Hana. We're hopeful and confident there's going to be more exciting journeys in the future as well.
Looking forward to that. Okay, the next question is from Sonia Hassan. She writes, Salam from Chicago. This book reading is perfect, not only for children, but for adults too, who cannot fast for various reasons like me. A good reminder that you do what you are able to, and Allah is El Rahman. I'm sorry if I get that wrong. The most merciful. Remind us all to selflessly give for the sake of our connection to each other. So I think she wanted to make that comment to you all.
Yep. Very good comment. I'll just echo what she says, that Ramadan's a really beautiful month because the goal is to bring you closer to humanity and closer to your creator. Fasting is one means, but as the book points out, that's not the only means, right? You can still observe Ramadan even if you can't fast. And if you can't fast because you're traveling or you're sick, or you're maybe elderly or you have a chronic illness, you're actually not allowed to fast. But that doesn't mean that you can't still observe Ramadan. And you do that by feeding the poor, by increasing your connection with humanity, by improving yourself. And so in that respect, anyone, whether you're Muslim or not, can observe Ramadan by simply working on self-improvement and self-reformation.
If you're a woman, if you're pregnant, or if you're a new mom, or then you don't.
How old are you when you start fasting?
So typically, you don't really start fasting until you're an adult. I started fasting around 17, 18, 19 years old. Kids will fast, like my 12-year-old fasted the other day just for the experience of it. And after one day, he was like, all right, that's enough for me, no more. and if he wanted to fast maybe one more time this month, I probably would let him. But, children need nutrition, right? And they're growing, their bodies aren't equipped to handle that. And so typically around the age of, late teens, early 20s is when people start fasting.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, Imran K says, to me, it makes me feel very good to have a book about our religious holiday, but that I can share with my non-Muslim friends.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of what the representation aspect of it is, right? I mean, I really wanted this to be like a very inclusive, non-confrontational discussion on something. They say you should never discuss religion and politics, and I wanted this to be a way to discuss something that is a faith, is a religion, but do it in a way that I think it was intended to be. I'm always reminded of a really famous incident from the early history of Islam when Muslim refugees went to Abyssinia, and this was a Christian kingdom, and the African king of Abyssinia, the Muslims went to him and asked for refuge against their persecutors, against the people who were tormenting them. And this righteous Christian king said that, yes, I will give you refuge because Muhammad and Jesus are two rays of light from the same sun. I mean, what a beautiful way to speak about the unity of humanity. And so I often tell folks that when you see religious violence or sectarian violence, it's a contradiction. It's the opposite of what these great faiths teach. And if we can just remember that we should be exhibiting light from the same sun, we can certainly create a much more peaceful and unifying world going forward.
Absolutely.
And I want to say too that this book is so beautiful, Qasim, that a lot of people don't know that Muslims actually believe in all of the prophets, and fasting is a part of many of these faiths' practice. Muslims just do it for a month, and so we go hard. So, but it's such a beautiful thing to make a children's book, to be able to really unite the practices of everybody. If you sit with them and do some of the work and just are on your own personal spiritual path.
Thank you.
Well said. Beautiful.
We have another question from M. Tahir, and the question is, and not to take away from the importance of reading, but have you thought about taking the book and the art and doing an animated version of the story?
I think M. Tahir is reading my mind right now. So we'll see what the future holds. But I can say with confidence that this is not the last that we've heard of Hana. I think it speaks to the same theme of making sure we have meaningful representation through all mediums. And that's certainly one we're exploring, and we'll see what the future holds.
There is a question from Katie, and the question is, did you draw on any personal experiences when writing this?
Yes, beautiful question, Katie. Absolutely. For us, this is about taking the experiences we had growing up and trying to, illustrate them. Everything from the foods that I talked about, the foods that I grew up eating, to the fact I'm an immigrant to this country. I literally didn't speak a word of English when we came here, and now I know at least like 12 words. And it really was the kindness of friends that got us through early on. And then, the day of Eid, going to the mosque, wearing your best clothing, the wonderful aromas, going to the cemetery to wish peace upon your loved ones who have passed away. Then having this massive feast of a party with just more people than you can count, and people from all walks of life. These are all experiences that I drew upon. But Amatus, I know you had similar experiences, but I'd love for you to answer that question from your perspective too.
Please.
I just want to give a shout out to your wife who gave me this scarf, this beautiful scarf. But yeah, no, I think you illustrated that perfectly, Qasim.
There is a question from Daisy. Can you talk about your experience writing the book? It's very different from your other professional life.
Oh man, so writing a children's book is I've learned it's actually really hard. I've written law review articles, 10,000 word pieces, 20,000 word pieces. I don't know how many op-eds, and I'm not bad at speaking impromptu on any given subject, but when you're writing a children's book, what's that old saying? I think it's by either Mark Twain or Abraham Lincoln. I always confuse, but something to the effect of, I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one. And I know the children's book is like that. Every word is so critical to every conversation. And it was a lot of editing, a lot of revising, but it was also a really good team effort too. My agent, Tanusri, is just incredible with her insight into the way we should present a perspective. Some of the parts of the story that seem so natural and fluid, she kind of helped break through the gridlock. The team of editors at Penguin Publishing just are so good at their craft, so good at what they do. So it really was a good team effort in making it come through, and it was a very, very time-consuming effort. But that's where having good people around you makes it so much better and easier.
Yeah. Amatus, do you have any desire to write a children's book? Do you have one in the works?
I've been writing a few ideas. Yeah. I think, yeah. I mean, I respect every lane and craft of writing. It's the web is deep, but I think I have been most inspired by having the blessing of being able to have a child, and really, and I used to be a teacher, and so just really being able to see little people come alive and develop their own imagination and see themselves in stories. So yeah, long story short, like I am working on something. So
great. Well, maybe we'll be seeing you here in the future again. Okay, we have a question from Imran K. Qasim Uncle, will you write more books on our religion or continue the adventure of Hana? I love this book from Imran K, age 9.
Thank you, Imran. That's so kind of you. Yes, the short answer is yes. We want to continue the adventures. It's so interesting. I was talking to, I don't know if you've seen the movie Into the Spider-Verse. It's directed by Peter Ramsey. I was talking to Peter Ramsey, who's the director of this really wonderful animated movie. And this is before or right around the time we were finishing Hana and the Ramadan Gift. And Peter made a comment to me that even though it's an animated character, it's a fictional character, you kind of grow attached to the character. Like it's a friend, or it's like somebody that you look out for. And I've kind of experienced that with Hana, that, you know, I have my own daughter, Hana, but then seeing the animated version, like you want to know what happens next in her life. So Imran, my promise is that we will do everything possible to keep this story going and to keep this journey going. But thank you so much for reading it. And thank you for those really kind and thoughtful words.
Well, this is a question for both of you. Can you talk more about the importance of representations, specifically in children's literature? Did you see yourself in books when you were growing up? Amatus, do you want to start us off?
This is a golden era, I feel, for children's books in the past couple of years. And I'm amazed. I did not see myself in multifaceted ways growing up, being an African-American, being a Muslim, being someone from a city, just different, all the different layers that many of us come here with. And so, yeah, this is a time for writing in general, especially since there's so many different platforms, and telling the truth or being honest or representing your identity is really what will push the culture forward. So I'm happy so many more exist right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was really part of why I wanted to write this book. You know, initially I had pitched the idea about 12, 13 years ago when we were expecting our eldest, because we didn't find very many books like this at all. Since then, I should say, mostly written by women of color, there have been some phenomenal books on Ramadan, on just, you know, kind of these themes of representation. And I'm, you know, certainly privileged to add to a growing body of work. I don't think we've gotten there yet. There's, I think, probably fewer than a couple of hundred at the most. One of the exercises I did was just to go on Amazon.com and see how many books there were on Christmas over the last 25 years. And there's something like over 20,000, which is phenomenal. But you compare that to books on Ramadan and you get like 24, which, you know, it speaks to the need for us to tell our story. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, when it comes to representation, it's a two-way street. One, I want, you know, children who celebrate Ramadan to feel represented, to feel valued, to feel like they matter, because they do. But I also want children who don't celebrate Ramadan to understand what Ramadan is, to know that it's a holiday about love and about inclusivity, about serving humanity, about being there for your neighbor, so that they can grow up as more informed young people and become informed young adults, and then become informed and compassionate adults as well. And hopefully contribute to a stronger and more unified society. So this really representation goes a long way. It has lasting impacts throughout one's life.
Yes, this book is a book for everyone, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Another question from Aisha Noor. Since Hannah was trying to help her friend at the park, then why did the teacher get mad at her?
That's a really good question. So I think that the point of that part of it was to show that sometimes, even when you're doing something with the best of intentions and you're doing it for the right reasons, not everyone's going to see that you were trying to genuinely help somebody. And sometimes when you have to make a decision to help somebody, you might even get in trouble for it. And so it's a lesson of sometimes we have to be selfless. You know, it's easy to be selfish, but we have to be selfless. We have to look out for the needs of other people, even if it means making a personal sacrifice. And so, you know, her teacher, you know, kind of scolding her was because she was late. And maybe her teacher just didn't take the time to realize why she was late. But the message that I want young people to understand is that as you grow up, as you get older, sometimes people are going to need help, and you're going to need to make a personal sacrifice for that. But you should always be willing to help people, because at the end of the day, our job is to serve each other as best as we can.
Yeah, that was a great answer to that. For being late to class.
Okay, we have another question from M. Tayer. This is perhaps a question best posed for the artist, but I would like to know if there were also of the Islamic faith, or if not, what was their process / experience of creating artwork for an Islamic themed book?
Well, I certainly can't speak for Alia Jalil, but I will speak what I know. I mean, she, as far as I know, she's a practicing Muslim. It's pretty obvious that she is. And this isn't her first book. She's done some amazing artwork in the past. And you can follow her on Instagram and on Twitter. And she actually talks a lot about her journey, her thought process. And she was, again, really a pleasure to work with. It really knocked my socks off the very first draft that she sent our way. I could tell she gets it. And I think she gets it because a lot of this is about her lived experiences as well. And so it wasn't so much as trying to explain to her what Ramadan is, because she was already extraordinarily well versed on that, having practiced Ramadan and practiced as a Muslim her entire life. But it was really more just the subtleties that we had to figure out, and even on that front, she was wonderful to work with. But I would encourage you to follow her on Instagram and on social media. She's not hard to find, and look at her other artwork too, because she's very, very good at what she does.
It's beautiful. I love that picture of the mosque when they're walking up to the mosque. It's so beautiful. It's just like the sunlight's coming in. It's just really beautiful. Do you have a favorite spread of the book?
I think that's one of my favorite ones, but I think my favorite one, and I don't know if Alia looked at my street that I live on, but for me, my favorite one is this last one, this last day of Ramadan, because that looks like my street. So I don't know if he did like a Google Maps view or something or what, but but that that moment though, we've all experienced it. Those fleeting moments of Ramadan, she just captured it so perfectly, and it's really a bittersweet moment because you are grateful that you were able to experience and take the blessings and the advantage of this month, but you're also sorrowful that the month's over, and you wonder, did I really make the most of it? Did I serve humanity as best as I could? Could I have given more charity? Could I have done more on self-reflection? Will I get to see Ramadan again? So that moment really captures a lot of emotions, and I think Alia did such a beautiful job of capturing all those emotions in one spread.
Beautiful. Amatus, did you have a favorite spread in the book?
I like the pictures of your family, Qasim, when they go in the photo book. And I like that type of storytelling in general, when people connect the dots and go from one place to another. So when I read the book for the first time, I responded to that, and it warmed my heart.
That's great.
Well, you're just about out of time, but I'm just curious, do the two of you have more, do you have future plans together? Do you have other creative things that you're working on?
Well, I mean, we're constantly trying to take over the world. But we're working on it. No, Amatus and I have worked on several projects in the past. We've spoken on panels together, and I'm so grateful to her for being here on this really important day and helping just share in this story.
And I too second that. I would love to see this as an animated series, or just to expand in whatever way that it's supposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll see what the future holds. I'm excited about the possibilities, and once we have more information, we're obviously going to share that. I will share, Heidi, that if you order a copy of the book from Politics and Prose, I've signed a number of book plates as well, and that'll be included while supplies last. So definitely go to their website and order your copy so you can get one of those signed versions.
Absolutely. And we've made it easy for people. We are just going to put that link right in the chat right now. So everyone, please jump in there and get your copy and a signed book plate. Thank you both so much for being here tonight. It's during Ramadan, and you've been fasting all day. So really appreciate you bringing your energy and your kindness to this event tonight. So thank you so much both for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us, Heidi.
Thank you. And you all everyone can follow us on our social media. We'll put the information in the link. And we look forward for your future endeavors. Hopefully, Amatus, we'll have you back here with your children's book someday. And maybe Qasim could ask you some questions. So we look forward to seeing that. And we wish you luck in all of your future plans, and hope the rest of your Ramadan is wonderful. So thank you all for everything that you're doing. Appreciate it.
Thank you.